Hey guys, welcome back to another club building video, and this time I'm talking shaft tip diameter. It's one of those things that we discuss a lot. I see it a lot in like the golf work forums, or when I'm talking to other club builders or people who are getting into club building, but it's one of those things that's not really understood that well, especially when it comes to the irons. Woods, a little bit different story, but when it comes to irons and what it means to soft step, hard step, tip to flex, fine tune, frequency, there's a lot of things that are misunderstood. So I'm here to try and clear those up in under 8 minutes. So with driver shafts, there are two main shaft tip diameters. There's 335 and 350. 335 is the industry standard for everything aftermarket. Now most OEMs are using 335s because a lot of them have started using like an aftermarket shaft in their off-the-rack drivers, or they offer a lot of no-cost upgrade options. And 350 is one of those things that is, you'll still see a lot of them in more of the value line product off the rack. You can order a custom, more of like a package set product, or you would have seen it say 5 to 10 years ago when a lot of shaft manufacturers were making made for shafts for OEMs. And what a 335 allowed them to do from an engineering point of view was anytime you make something larger in diameter, it becomes stronger. So you could use either more less expensive material, you could use a little less of expensive material, increase that shaft diameter, you reduce breakage, and overall you end up reducing cost down the line. It's just a simple trick. It's one of those things from an engineering point of view. There's decision making that goes into that process of building a product when you're designing something for the consumer, and that's what happens is you don't necessarily, it's not compromising, it's just finding different ways to solve the problem to create a product that is stronger, and then also in the end provides the best product while also saving the company or said company a little extra money. Keeps costs down across the board for the consumer, which is a good thing. Now with irons, there's two ways to discuss this. We have taper and parallel. So tapers are 355 and parallels are 370, and this also applies to both steel and graphite. When it comes to parallel shafts, what happens is the shafts come in blanks. This is a set of blanks. They are rifle 6.0s. You'll notice they're all the same length at the tip and the butt, or the tip and the butt. And these are actually 43 inches long, so there's a lot to work with here. I think the shafts, rifle blanks, have roughly 12 inches of shaft parallel tip section, which means there's a lot of opportunity to fine-tune the flex within this set. Now the best way to do that, you can follow tipping instructions, you can weight sort, you can go through and look at the pre-measured CPM. That's the great thing about these shafts, is they have that on them already, so you can go through and fine-tune which ones play a little stiffer, which ones play a little softer. But if you have the opportunity, use a frequency machine, which I've talked about in another video. It's a super handy tool for fine-tuning. So when you're finished a fit for a customer and they've decided on a golf shaft and you've decided on the shaft you're going to build with, you can take that shaft, you can measure it, and then when you go to build the set, you can basically nail the specs right on the dot. Now, there is taper. Taper comes in designated lengths. So you can't really tip them. You can. I don't want to say never, because there's a lot of little rules that are generalizations within club building, but when you're an experienced club builder, you can kind of go beyond those to really fine-tune what you're going to do for your customer or even for yourself as a club builder. Now, what you'll notice is, basically at this end, at the butt end, these are all the same, just to give you an idea. And then at this end, you'll see they're all different lengths, and that's because taper come in designated lengths. There's a 9-iron shaft, an 8-iron shaft, a 7-iron shaft, etc. Now, what you can do to fine-tune the flex is called soft stepping or hard stepping. It's often discussed, and what it means is you make the shaft play a little bit harder or firmer, or you make it play a little bit softer within that shaft itself. Rather than changing to a different shaft, you can really just fine-tune in between flexes, just like you would with parallel, except you're not removing mass or length from the tip. To hard step, what that means is you would take a shorter shaft and put it into the longer club. So to hard step a 7-iron, you would use an 8-iron shaft. To hard step twice a 7-iron, you would use a 9-iron shaft. Now if you wanted to soft step a 7-iron, you would use a 6-iron shaft. If you want to soft step it twice, use a 5-iron shaft. Typically at that point, if you're going to do it twice, you're probably going to end up in a different golf shaft. So I don't usually recommend that unless you're really fine-tuned on a weight, which is important from a club building perspective or from a fitting perspective. If a customer or a player really fits into a certain weight category and you're trying to fine-tune the flex, in that case, then you can soft step or hard step one way or the other. You just never want to run out of shafts within that set. Now here's where it comes down to graphite, and this is one of those topics that's often discussed, and there's always a bit of a debate within the topic. Just like with steel, there are designated length graphite shafts, and there are also parallel graphite shafts. Taper, exactly the same as steel. You just find the right length, soft step and hard step. Parallel is a little different, and this is because a lot of people don't like making parallel shafts fit into taper club heads. You can do it. You can sand down a taper golf shaft to fit into sand down a parallel shaft to taper to fit into a taper club head without having to ream it. The reason is there's actually a lot more material than people expect on the tip end of a graphite shaft. This is a 70-gram parallel tip shaft. You'll see there's a ton of material there. I got the light nice and bright so you can actually see that to demonstrate. When you go from 370 to 355, you're removing 0.15 of the actual material, which half of that is on either side of the golf shaft. So really it's very little. And what that allows you to do is take those taper or parallel shafts, make them taper once you frequency match or once you've built them to fit the set, and you don't lose any weight in the club head. And this is particularly important when you're using graphite shafts, especially lighter weight ones, and you want to maintain as much weight in the club head because you're trying to either you don't want to use lead tape or you can't find a tip weight that really is going to work. Now there are limitations to this rule. I'd never like to do it with anything less than 60 grams. 60 and above, by all means, sand away. You're never going to have a problem if you do it properly. Now the reason this is becoming more popular is because a lot of driving irons that are used on tour or just in every consumer's golf bag are especially driving iron models, not like a full hybrid wood style hybrid, but with driving irons, they're taper shafts. And if you want to use something like I don't know, Graphite Design does make a taper, but if you're using something like a hazardous and it is 370 and you don't want to ream that club head out, just sand it down just a little bit. I've talked to a lot of different shaft manufacturers. They all recommend with proper technique, you're never going to have an issue. Again, because there's a lot of mass there and it's not going to create a weak spot when you're building the golf club. It's really important. Go ahead, take your time, get your safety glasses on, use a proper belt sander, and sand away. Now, it's a great question. I love talking about this stuff. If you like what I'm talking about, please subscribe to my channel. I try and update it as much as possible. And thanks so much for watching.